Smoke strangled Arcadia 6. Not drifting, crawling, thick and chemical, snaking through the shattered perimeter like it had unfinished business. Ash hung in the 105-degree heat, burning throats, stinging eyes, coating every breath in metal. Through that gray choke, a small figure emerged, wrapped in torn field gear, face hidden under a dark hood, boots so silent they'd be missed if not for the way Marines turned to stare. A young private near the gate chuckled when he saw the tiny black marking on her wrist, a thin vertical slash crossing a curved V. "Look at that," he snorted. "Cute tattoo." 3 seconds later, her rifle cracked. A silhouette nearly a mile and a half away jerked and folded into the sand. When the hooded figure lowered her aim, the entire SEAL detachment froze like someone had pressed pause on them. Commander Jackson Rain took a step back. "God," he whispered. "Wraith 12, Veridan program." Arcadia 6 looked like a scar peeled open on the desert floor. Red sand fused with black smoke. Mortars had pummeled the outpost all morning, leaving steaming craters that still hissed. Rain wiped sweat from his jaw as a battered Humvee limped through the twisted gate. 6 days of siege. 6 days of enemy harassment so precise it felt pre-programmed. "Sir, your attachment is here," Rodriguez called. Rain turned. A figure climbed out of the Humvee's passenger side. Small, maybe 5'5", oversized fatigues, face completely erased by the hood. She moved with deliberate slowness, pulling a rifle case older than half the outpost. The way she held it, gentle, almost reverent, made Rain's stomach tighten without knowing why. "That's our sniper support?" Briggs scoffed. "Command's joking, right?" The hooded figure ignored him. Ignored everyone. Her footsteps made no sound as she crossed toward the collapsed watchtower, barely standing, barely defensible, but high enough to matter. Rain followed. "Welcome to Arcadia 6, he said. "Commander Jackson Rain, 3rd Recon." Her voice cut through the heat. Quiet, feminine, foreign, cold. "I read the brief. And your name? Shadow 7. "That's a call sign," Rain said. "It's all you need." She knelt beside the rifle case, hands moving with clinical precision. As she worked the latches, the sleeve slid up just enough for Rain to see it. V12. A mark almost too small to matter, unless you'd seen it before. Unless you'd watched a NATO debrief years ago with that same mark blurred out. Briggs snorted again. "Nice ink. Get it on discount somewhere." She didn't react. The rifle she lifted wasn't standard. It wasn't anything Arcadia 6 should have had. A custom-built Axar 338 Norma Magnum, worn smooth by years of use, rebuilt so many times it had a personality. Her hands trembled slightly. Rain frowned. "You good?" "Fine, sharp, final." "Sir," Rodriguez shouted. "Ridgeline, 2 clicks out. Looks like scouts. 4 or 5. Through heat shimmer, Rain could barely make out the shapes. Too far. Wrong angle. No one should hit that. He looked down. Shadow 7 was already prone, still, breath gone, every tremor erased. She whispered, "Range 2100, wind 12, gusting 15, 42 Celsius, humidity 17. Briggs scoffed. "There's no way she—" The rifle cracked. 3 seconds. A scout collapsed. Shadow 7 cycled the bolt. Another crack, another fall. The remaining silhouettes scattered like they'd seen death stand up and stretch. Rain lowered his binoculars slowly. "Where did you train?" he asked. Shadow 7 was already breaking her rifle down. "Somewhere that doesn't exist anymore." Hours later, Arcadia 6 slept in shifts. Rain didn't. He sat in the comms bunker, typing search strings he wasn't supposed to type. Female snipers, Eastern Black Ops programs, Unit V12, Wraith identifiers, V12. Most files were buried under redactions. Then, a damaged NATO archive opened by accident. Rain's blood ran cold. Wraith 12 codename, the Wraith of Veridan Unit, V12, Ghost Meridian, 17 high-value eliminations in one night, extreme range accuracy exceeding 1900 psych note. Processes threat vectors with non-standard cognition. Status KIA, body unrecovered. He clicked the attached satellite image. A hooded sniper, posture identical, tattoo identical. V12. Rain whispered, "She can't be alive." But outside, in the dead watchtower, Shadow 7 sat like a statue carved from the smoke, and the way she didn't move felt exactly like a ghost who never agreed to stay dead. Where are you tuned in from? If you're staying in this operation, like and subscribe. The next missions get darker. Night fell hard over Arcadia 6. Not gently, not gradually, like someone dropped a blackout curtain across the Haleb rift and forgot to lift it. Commander Jackson Rain ducked through the blast door into the comms bunker, brushing sand from his sleeves. The air inside was thick with heat, sweat, and the sour bite of overheated electronics. Still, it was better than staying outside with the mortar teams prowling just beyond the horizon. Specialist Carter Wynn straightened. "Sir, you should see this." Rain leaned over the terminal. Drone feed. Grainy, glitching, running off a backup node buried under the tower. Static rolled across the frame, but the ridge was visible enough. 5 enemy scouts. 1 shot fired. Only 1 body on the ground. But something else caught his eye. The angle of the fall, the dust bloom, the way the round punched through at a downward trajectory. A 188-20-meter cold bore shot. He'd seen that once, only once, and it didn't belong to the living. "Pull up the tactical manifest again," Rain said quietly. Wynn pressed keys. The name flashed, Shadow 7 assignment. Origin, redacted qualification, unknown program, classified prior identifier, V12 Veridan. Rain exhaled once. Slow. Heavy. There was a reason some ghosts were better left dead. He stepped into the intelligence alcove, locked the door, and keyed in an override code that technically didn't exist. A hidden directory opened. One he wasn't supposed to access without authorization from Task Force Sentinel Command. Rain tapped the file. CSRD Black Level Brief, Spectre 12 Initiative, designation linked to Veridan Unit V12. Clearance, Obsidian Tier Status, Terminated, KIA. The words hit like shrapnel. He clicked it open. A single photo loaded first, blurry, low light, taken from a rooftop in Vorinsk, Red Vale District. Smoke everywhere, civilians fleeing, and in the corner of the image, half obscured behind a crumbling parapet, a crouched figure held a rifle, stock wrapped in tape, barrel customized, scope with no serial number. He remembered that rifle. He remembered the day it fell silent. Rain scrolled. Operational Summary, Operation Winter Signal, Sniper Asset, Spectre 12. Confirmed HVT eliminations, 12 in 7 hours. Longest recorded shot, 1690. Urban warfare, constant fire, heavy artillery. Asset presumed KIA after building collapse. Body recovered. No positive ID. His fist tightened. No positive ID. He'd been there when the rubble was pulled apart. He'd helped carry out a young woman, dust-coated, gray-skinned, still warm enough to make him think she might breathe again. But her eyes had been empty, unfocused. Dead. Or so he thought. The log continued. Psych Eval. Maj Rena Volkov. S12 designate. Subject exhibits. Extreme emotional compartmentalization. Hyperfocus under duress. Detachment consistent with sustained trauma. Recommendation: if S12 ever loses the cold, she will break. Rain shut the file. He didn't need more. Shadow 7 wasn't a replacement. She wasn't a successor. She was Spectre 12 herself. Reborn or broken, he couldn't tell. But she shouldn't have been here. No one with her clearance level ended up at the edge of the Haleb rift without a reason. And someone, somewhere, had signed the paperwork to hide her under a different name. He moved back toward the exit, but froze. Shadow 7 stood in the doorway, hood still up, rifle slung across her back like a quiet warning. "How much did you read?" she asked. Rain didn't reach for his weapon, didn't speak. She closed the door behind her. "Doesn't matter," she said. "Spectre 12 died in Voronsk." Rain studied her face, the sliver he could see beneath the hood, a scar along the jaw, eyes that held no fear and no warmth. "You walked out of a building collapse," Rain said. "You walked out of a grave." "No." Her voice was steady. "The girl they pulled from the rubble died. I only inherited what she left behind." A beat of silence. "Why Arcadia 6? Rain asked. "Why now?" She looked toward the tower she had claimed as her perch, where the burned horizon flickered with distant muzzle flashes. "Because someone here is going to die," she said. Rain stiffened. "Who?" Shadow 7 finally pushed her hood back. Wind-chapped skin, dust-streaked hair, eyes colder than the round she'd fired earlier. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Everyone. Unless I stop what's coming." Outside, the sky rumbled. Low, rolling thunder that wasn't weather at all. Mortars. Lots of them. Rain grabbed his radio. "Arcadia 6, brace for contact. All stations, prepare for a full assault." Shadow 7 turned toward the blast door. "I'll be in the tower," she said. "Where I belong." And the ghost walked back into the fire. By 0538 hours, the Haleb rift was too quiet. Not calm, not peaceful, just wrong. Commander Jackson Rain stood on the northern catwalk of Arcadia 6, staring into a valley painted in early amber light. Dust clung to everything. The antennas, the ruptured fuel drums, the cracked HESCO barriers. The outpost looked exhausted, like a fighter who had taken one round too many but refused to go down. Shadow 7 was already in the broken tower, silent, steady, barely a silhouette. Rain never said it out loud, but he'd seen that posture years ago in a city that no longer existed. "Commander," Specialist Wynn called from comms. "Satellite intercept from Sentinel Command. We've got movement in Sector 9. Rain ducked inside. The display lit up with 7 red markers creeping through the canyon. "Convoy?" Rain asked. "Affirm. Speed suggests modified transports. Thermal indicates man pads or launcher crates. Meaning, if they reach the ridge, Arcadia's air corridor would be dead. ETA, 19 minutes. He keyed the tower channel. "Shadow 7, you getting this?" A brief static hiss. Then her voice, quiet, crisp. "I have the valley mapped. Recommend firing position. Elevation point Kilo, 47 meters west of ridgeline." Rain frowned. "That's 2 clicks out." 1.9, she corrected. "I'm moving." "Shadow, you'll be alone." A pause. "I'm used to alone." The line cut. She moved across the desert like she had studied every grain of sand the night before. No wasted steps, no visible silhouette longer than a breath. She used dead ground, canyon folds, and rock spines to mask her approach. Technique from urban warfare translated flawlessly to open terrain. A route only someone from the Veridan program would know how to exploit. Terrain that should take 90 minutes to cross. She reached it in under 20. Thermal distortion off the rift helped hide her, luck, skill, or muscle memory from another life. Rain watched through long-range optics as she slid into position, settled her pack, and unfolded the XR-338 Norma Magnum like it was a part of her body she'd been missing. At 08:15 hours, her voice returned. "Arcadia Actual. Overwatch in place." "Copy," Rain answered. "Convoy ETA 5 minutes." The valley tightened into a stillness that felt unnatural. "Visual confirmed," she murmured. 7 vehicles. Lead truck is command. Second hull's ordnance. Crosswind variable, adjusting 1.2 mils. Her breathing slowed until Rain could barely hear it. He'd seen good marksmen. He'd trained with great ones. But whatever she was, this was something different. "Take the command vehicle when ready," he said. Silence. Then the world cracked. The first shot snapped across the canyon like a wire pulled tight and cut. The lead vehicle jerked as its windshield atomized. It fishtailed, slammed the rock wall, and folded into itself. Before the dust settled, her second round punched through the ordnance truck's tire, ripping it apart. Metal screamed as the vehicle collapsed sideways. Gunfire erupted below. Wild, panicked, blind. Shadow 7 fired again. A turret gunner dropped before he even lifted the DSHK's handles. Fourth shot, barrel severed. Fifth. Driver of the rear truck slumped over the wheel. In 118 seconds, the convoy became nothing but twisted steel and men diving behind useless cover. Rain lowered his binoculars, breath unsteady. This wasn't discipline. This wasn't training. This was a ghost, reclaiming the shape of the legend people once whispered about in rooms with locked doors. Shadow 7. Status? Her voice returned as a thin thread of calm. Primary convoy neutralized. Secondary elements emerging. Rain stiffened. Secondary. South Ridge, multiple signatures, mortar teams. Then, almost too soft to catch. They weren't protecting the convoy. They were baiting the shot. Rain's stomach dropped. How many inbound? A beat. A lot. In the distance, new mortar flashes blinked like angry stars. Shadow 7 chambered another round. Arcadia 6 is the objective, she said. And they intend to erase it. Rain swallowed hard. Then they'll have to get through us. Shadow 7 exhaled, steady, certain. No, Commander. A single shot echoed as she dropped the first mortar spotter from nearly 1,900 meters. They'll have to get through me. The first explosion hit at 2017 hours. It didn't sound like a mortar. It sounded like the earth itself cracked open. Commander Jackson Rain staggered as the western perimeter of Arcadia 6 disintegrated in a sheet of flame. Sandbags vaporized, floodlights shattered. The ground trembled with the force of a hammer striking bedrock. Then came the second blast, and the third. And then, they stopped counting. All stations, contact west! Contact west! Staff Sergeant Miles shouted into the radio, voice swallowed by the roar. Rain sprinted across the courtyard, boots slipping in loose gravel. The air reeked of cordite and burning insulation. His men were already taking firing positions, some dragging the wounded toward cover, others shoving ammo boxes toward the breach. But one thought cut through the chaos. Shadow 7. Where is she? Carter, get me her channel, Rain barked. Wind tried. Static slammed back. Another shell landed, close enough to blast Rain off his feet. He rolled, chest burning, ears ringing. Commander, northern gun pit is gone, Briggs yelled. They're flooding the perimeter. Rain pushed himself up, vision swimming. He raised his radio again. Shadow 7, respond. We need your fire. No answer. Rain swore, sprinting toward the watchtower, what remained of it. The staircase was half collapsed, chunks of concrete spilling like broken teeth. He climbed anyway, fingers bleeding as he pulled himself higher. Halfway up, rifle fire cracked from the top. Not enemy fire, her fire. Rain hauled himself onto the tower platform. Shadow 7 lay prone, AXSR braced on a jagged concrete slab, brass casings pooling like copper rain around her elbows. She fired, cycled the bolt, fired again. No hesitation, no wasted motion. You were supposed to fall back, Rain shouted. She didn't look at him. If I leave this tower, she said, firing another round, they cut your retreat in half. Rain crawled beside her. You can't hold this alone. I am not alone, she murmured. I have elevation. She fired again. Another silhouette dropped in the distance. Rain watched her, how her hands trembled when she wasn't shooting, but became still as stone the moment cheek met stock. It was like the rifle wasn't just a weapon. It was the only thing holding her together. Her breath steadied. Her pulse slowed. The cold settled in her eyes. The same cold he'd seen in Vorinsk, the one the files had warned about. Spectre 12 was awake. South flank is breaking, Rain warned. I see it. She adjusted half a millimeter. Crack. A PKM gunner spun backward. Crack. The spotter fell beside him. Crack. A third silhouette collapsed before it reached the breach. But then Shadow 7 froze. Commander, she said quietly, they're moving artillery. Rain checked the horizon. His stomach dropped. On the eastern ridge, through the dust and muzzle flashes, a mortar team was setting coordinates. For the tower. "They're targeting you," Rain shouted. "You need to move, now!" Shadow 7 rolled to a crouch, eyes locked on the ridge. "There's a higher position," she said. "East water tower, I can stop them from there." Rain's blood chilled. The water tower was 300 meters across open ground, no cover, no concealment, and had been taking fire since the attack began. A suicide run, unless someone could read fire patterns like a machine and time their sprint between volleys. And only one person he knew could. "You won't make it," he said. She met his gaze, really met it, for the first time. "Commander," her voice softened. "I've been here before. Different desert, different war, same ending." Rain grabbed her arm. "Raina, don't do this." She looked down at his hand, then gently removed it. "I need to do something that means more than killing," she whispered. "Let me save them." Before he could stop her, she was gone, sliding down the rubble, sprinting across the killing field. Mortar rounds slammed behind her, chasing her shadow. Tracer fire cracked inches from her shoulders. One round clipped the ground at her heel, spraying sparks. But she never slowed, never broke stride, never looked back. Rain screamed into the radio. "All units, cover the east! Shadow 7 is moving!" But the desert swallowed his voice. Shadow 7 reached the base of the water tower and began to climb, hand over hand, boots scraping steel. Bullets rang off the metal like hail on a storm door. She reached the top, settled behind the railing, anchored her rifle. "Arcadia Actual," she whispered, breath trembling in the mic. "Target acquired." Rain held his breath. The rifle cracked. Then the mortar team vanished in a cloud of dust. But so did the tower. A mortar round, fired minutes earlier, finally hit the ruptured auxiliary fuel line running beneath the tank. A thunderclap of flame swallowed the entire structure, fire climbing skyward like a sunrise made of shrapnel. Rain felt the shock wave punch the air from his chest. "No," he whispered. "Raina, no!" And Arcadia 6 watched the tower collapse. Steel folding, fire blooming, smoke devouring the sky, like the desert itself was consuming its final defender. The ghost had fallen, or so they thought. The water tower burned for a full minute before collapsing. Steel screamed, fire blossomed. A shock wave rolled across Arcadia 6 like a giant exhale. For several heartbeats, no one moved, no one spoke. Commander Jackson Rain dropped to his knees, dust rising around him. He barely felt the blood running from his shoulder or the heat from the blast. All he heard was the echo of her last words. "Let me save them." "Start searching," Rain roared, voice cracking. "Move, now!" Marines scattered through the glowing wreckage. The desert hissed as hot metal cooled in the night air. Every piece of twisted steel they lifted felt heavier than the last. Minutes crawled, then tens of minutes. Hope thinned. And then, "Sir!" Specialist Wynn yelled from the far rocks. "Blood trail!" Rain sprinted toward him. A faint line of dark drops wound toward a narrow split in the sandstone. He shoved himself through the gap and froze. There, in a shallow cavern lit only by moonlight, sat Shadow 7. The blast had thrown her clear, luck, angle, and a collapsing section of steel acting like a shield. Her hood was gone, blonde hair matted with grit, face bruised, left arm bent wrong. But her eyes, those impossible gray eyes, were open, barely. "Told you," she whispered, voice like broken glass. "I'd relocate." Rain dropped beside her, hands shaking. "Raina, stay awake. Medical is on the way." She blinked slowly. "Did we hold Arcadia?" "We did. Because of you." A small smile tugged at her lips, soft and tired. "Good. That's good." She swayed. Rain caught her shoulder. "Stay with me." She tilted her head, studying him with a strange, calm clarity, like she was finally seeing him not as a commander, but as a man. You kept your promise, she murmured. Back in Vorinsk. You told me my story wasn't finished. Rain's breath caught. She remembered. And you were right, she said. I thought I had to die to stop being Spectre 12. Turns out, I just had to choose who I was saving. Medics arrived, lifting her onto a stretcher. As they carried her out, Raina reached toward Rain's wrist, fingers brushing his dog tags. Don't let them turn this into another ghost story, she whispered. Tell them the truth. Then she passed out. 3 days later, under the sterile lights of the Ironwood Field Hospital, Raina Volkov opened her eyes again. This time, she wasn't alone. Rain sat beside her bed, uniform torn, arm in a sling, exhaustion carved into his face. You made it, he said. She let out a slow breath, almost a laugh. You sound surprised. Everyone in Arcadia 6 thinks you walked out of a firestorm. Raina looked at the cast on her arm, the bruises, the stitched cut along her jaw. Not walked, she corrected softly. Crawled. Rain chuckled under his breath. Still counts. He handed her a small brass box. Inside lay a weathered compass, the metal worn smooth with age. It was my grandfather's, Rain said. Carried it through Vietnam. He told me, a good compass doesn't point north, it points you home. Raina's fingers curled around it. A tremor ran through her. Not fear, but something gentler. Home, she whispered, like it was a language she was learning for the first time. Weeks later, at Ironwood Range, Raina stood on the observation deck, watching young snipers train under her guidance. Sunlight glinted off the black steel band on her wrist. S-12D, the decommission tag assigned when the Spectre program declared her KIA. No longer a designation, just a memory she chose to keep. A private approached her quietly. Ma'am, can I ask something? Raina nodded. Were you really Spectre 12? She studied the horizon, then answered, No, Spectre 12 died in Vorinsk. The private frowned. Then, who are you? Raina smiled, small, real, steady. Someone who decided to live. She turned back to the range, voice low but firm enough to reach every trainee in earshot. Remember this. Survival isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of the part you choose, and you, every one of you, deserve to choose that part. Behind her, the wind carried the faint, steady click of a compass pointing north. Toward home.